Good afternoon to all of you, and a warm welcome. It is really wonderful to see you all here in a very crowded chamber. I now like to call upon Matthew Roderick from the Air Cadets for his opening 3 minutes.
The United Kingdom, a small nation with a lot of power, responsibility and authority. We were great in the war, responsible, aware, leaving a legacy that echoes throughout the last century. We have stood up for those who need it, and we are a guiding nation in the world today. So yes, we are indisputably a more globally responsible nation. We are the United Kingdom, small yet mighty, with responsibilities and duties to the world that we have kept with us constantly since the war.
The United Kingdom is more socially aware of the impact of war, is a general public awareness of the consequences of combat. In the early stages of World War I, millions of citizens embraced the war, expecting it to end soon. Before, many conflicts were fought by soldiers far from home, yet the Great War opened up a new front of warfare for Britain, the home front. Civilians, including huge numbers of women for the first time, were now crucially involved in the war effort to aid their fellow countrymen fighting on the front line. Civilians were given a disturbing glimpse of what war was like, and it changed everyone's opinion, to the view that war, although at times necessary, is a destructive waste of life that should be avoided at all costs.
We must now look at the aftermath of war. In the First World War, we used 2.5 million soldiers from outside of the United Kingdom. Without these troops, we would not have had the presence we required and would have probably lost the war. We owe our lives to every soldier that fought on our side, not just those from the United Kingdom. And yet we hear stories of foreign soldiers who have fought in conflict since, threatened with deportation, after they've completed many years of service. This is another example of our country's inability to consider the effects of war. We focus solely on the preparation for war and conduct during.
On addressing the British Legion in 1932, a noble member of this House said, "Those girls and boys have got to learn from you, lest the lessons you learnt with such suffering be wasted." He might have been speaking about James Crozier, who enlisted in September 1914 when only 15 years old. In mid-February 1916, this teenager had wandered off, saying that he didn't know what he was doing, being in a daze and suffering pains throughout his body. Recognised now as shell shock or PTSD, the doctor then said that he was perfectly fit in mind and body. James was shot at dawn on the 26th of February 1916, aged 18, to set an example, evidently. What more do we know about PTSD and how this may affect our reservists, for example, in the future? We should no longer need to set an example.
The British Red Cross, formed to support our own soldiers, especially in World War I, is now a global organisation, helping to provide this aid to communities plagued by disease, disaster and debt. We're no longer just supporting our own citizens, but those across the world as a more globally responsible nation.
I'd like to begin by repeating our statement. Society is more aware of the impacts of war. Well, surely we can agree. We have developed extensively since World War I, both socially and economically. In terms of war, we publicise any notion and fully comprehend the effects. We are knowledgeable, strategic, considerate. You could say we've evolved. We are more aware. We do not strive to fight and kill for only reasons of primeval instincts or our own agendas. We have educated conversations, and our nation provides us with key insights. We are far from in the dark, but it is admittedly difficult to evaluate and measure awareness. It comprises of so many invisible factors. But do you not know of our wars and where our soldiers stand at present?
You would have thought that the experiences of World War I and II would have taught us that everyone has a right to self-determination. Even today, Britain has overseas territories that are disputed by other nations. For example, the Falklands and Gibraltar. Maybe it's time these remnants were offered full independence and self-determination from the UK in order to show the world that Britain has learned from its past mistakes.
Now, one line that always rests with me after remembrance services is this line: we will always remember them. Now, we will always remember the people who have fought in the past for our futures. Now, sometimes I think to myself, shouldn't that line be, we cannot forget them, because we cannot forget what those people done in war for our futures. Now, I do not justify war, and I hate violence myself, but sometimes there is a time for everything. There's a time for this today. Now all of us sit in the House of Lords to debate the Great War. There's a time for peace, and there's a time for war, and sometimes war has to occur so that the futures of certain people can be all right. Thank you.
A tragedy as large as World War I should emphasise our common bonds. As a result of its horrors, we act, and we should continue to act, as an increasingly globally responsible nation.
Never before had British society had to reintegrate such a large number of people who had been changed by the horrors of war. This impact was lasting, and Omar used tangible examples to show how this led to a step change in the way that British people and society viewed war.
Not just the military guys, but the civilian population as well. Because after the military leave wherever conflict we've been in, they have to rebuild their families and their lives and their houses. The government should consider all the consequences of war before getting involved in another conflict. We fought for you, so you should start to fight for us.
I think the first thing to say, and it's been said by the Lord Speaker, is how very impressive everyone has been. It's been an incredible debate. I've been really, really impressed. And I have to say, you're rather better than we peers at actually keeping to time. And please, you better not ding me, all right? Just so we know that. But it was very, very impressive and very succinct how the argument went. And it gave me great faith in all of you, actually. I've been involved with the cadet forces now for 50 years, very closely involved in the last 6 years, both running the Cadet Vocational Qualification Organisation, having a Sea Cadet unit of my own, and very involved with that. And my goodness me, what an impressive bunch you are. And it just reinforces to me what wonders the cadet forces do for our youngsters. And anyone who thinks the youngsters in this country aren't up to it's got it very wrong. And I see that when they join the services as well.
I think that's a clear win for those who believe that the UK, as a society, has not learned from its experiences of war. And I think that is a very interesting result. It was well argued. All three perspectives were extraordinarily well argued by all of you. But I do think that it is worthy of note, and that maybe our government and governments to come should take note of that view, which is being expressed largely by the younger generation, despite the fact that all of you are involved in the armed services in one way or another. Can I thank you again profoundly, all of you, and to wish you a very safe journey home, and the hope that I certainly will see you all again in the near future. Thank you.